Morning, everyone. Welcome to the All About Self-Care COSI workshop, our second one of the spring 24 semester. We do have Elizabeth Saunders here from the Counseling Center to go over that with you. And Elizabeth, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. I should have been using the first part to get my share screen going. So let me just, and then I want to share sound and video. Okay, give me just a moment to get my windows correct here. Put this down. Sorry about the delay on this. Good morning. My name is Elizabeth Saunders. Oh, I just closed my screen share window. I'm going to try again. My name is Elizabeth Saunders. My degree is as a licensed clinical social worker. So I have my master's in social work, and the track that I have taken with that over the last decade is to become a licensed therapist. And so I've been over here at the Campus Counseling Center for approximately the past 2.5 years. So let me make sure I get this PowerPoint going. And Ryan, are we all good to go? Can you see it?
That looks great.
Fantastic. Okay, so boy, I feel like so many of the topics I talk about with this group end up having lots of overlap, but I hope to bring in some fresh perspective today. All about the term self-care. I put it in quotes because, boy, this term sure gets thrown around in a lot of different ways. It gets thrown around certainly in some healthy ways, but as anything does through the telephone game of social media and people looking to make a buck, it sort of gets manipulated and becomes not such a healthy term sometimes as well. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that and brainstorm some ideas. So the goal today is to help you walk away with a somewhat clear definition of what self-care means in different contexts, but more importantly, what it means for each of you individually. I've decided to tackle it by breaking it down into what Indigenous cultures would call the medicine wheel and look at the 4 areas of mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical health, and hopefully include a couple of different ideas for resources on campus in the greater community and things online that you might want to look at further yourselves. So we'll just start with a definition. Sort of the traditional definition of self-care, the healthiest version in pop culture today is basically taking time to do things that help you live well. We're always looking for a balance as human beings and as a species. Self-care can help manage stress. It absolutely improves relationships. It improves brain health and communication skills, lower risk of all sorts of physical illnesses, and brings the whole body into holistic balance. I have one semi-political slide that talks about self-care as an act of social justice and capitalist resistance, but we'll save that for the end. And really, many cultures have included some concept of self-care as far back as time goes, maybe not calling it that, or maybe having different rituals and practices that include self-care activities. But engaging in self-care can really be a way to honor our ancestors and respect different cultures. So we'll watch just a quick video link here. Let me do a stop share and pull up my video for us. Here we go.
Nam yo reggaeton, nam yo reggaeton, nam yo reggaeton, nam yo reggaeton. I had to reach out to friends before I did anything suicidal or anything. I had to really reach out to friends and open up. When I first went to college, I was like, it's hard for me to really express myself, to say, hey, this is what I've been through, this is what I'm going through, and it Is there a way that you could just listen to me?
I'm in the process of learning about self-care. What I found for me that I like to do is to journal, writing out my thoughts and just allowing myself to kind of process what's been going on and all the new things that are happening. It makes me feel, I guess, more in touch with myself.
No estaba feliz. No estaba feliz con la situación en donde estaba y por eso yo busqué formas de ayudarme yo mismo. Cuando te metes en este lugar de meditación, se te aclara toda la mente, estás enfocado en lo que necesitas. Cuando termino, me siento como si peso menos, me siento ligero, me siento que mi cabeza no tiene todas estas cosas que hacen mi vida más difícil.
I'm lucky enough to say that I have multiple best friends. If there's a little thing where I just tell them that I'm really stressed out, I feel comfortable just letting them know. And they'll just reply you can talk to us if you want, you're not alone, And just those simple words of just telling someone that they're not alone can be so powerful.
La salud mental y cuidarme yo mismo me ha cambiado todo totalmente. Cada vez cuando veo a alguien que a lo mejor está en necesidad o no está en un lugar mentalmente bien, les digo, pruébenlo, 10, 15 minutos al día. Si no es para ustedes, está bien. Pero si les gusta y si les ayuda, qué bueno.
So as he mentioned in the video, using that meditation app has been life-changing as a college student. And I would like to take 5 minutes and walk you all through just a 4 or 5 minute relaxation exercise. It's so rare throughout our day that we can carve out time to just quiet our mind, quiet our body, and spend a moment in the present. So I'll read aloud this activity and you can follow my voice, or just find yourself in a space for these next few moments where you're in a comfortable position. You might be seated, maybe you're in your car, so don't close your eyes if you're in your car, or whatever you might be doing. Sit comfortably with your spine straight. You might decide to lie down on a couch or space on the floor. Begin to let your breath flow naturally. Imagine the breath coming in through the outer edges of your nostrils and flowing all the way down to your feet. The breath filling up your body all the way to the crown of your head. Exhale and release the air from the top down, letting all of the air out of your body all the way down to the tips of your toes. Take a few more breaths, and as you do, maybe your shoulders have crept up toward your ears. Just allow your shoulders to fall away from your ears. You may wish to rest a hand on your heart or a hand on your belly area. Your eyes can be open or closed. And in this moment, just remind yourself that your body knows how to breathe. It's the very first thing little babies do when they're born is they take a breath. So you don't have to think too hard or micromanage your body's breathing. Just let some air move in and out. And in the next portion of this exercise, we'll just move through our body, taking notice of how it feels in the moment. On an inhale, you might see the words, I am. And on the exhale, you might see the word here. This becomes the phrase, I am here. Do this with one round of breath. On the next round of breath, inhale and fill all the way up to the crown of your head with an I am, and exhale in the flow, On the next round of breath, match the phrase, I am in the flow, to your breath. On the next round of breath, repeat the words, I am on the inhale, and exhale, fully present. On a next round of breath, match the phrase, I am fully present, to your inhale and your exhale. You can notice the air moving up your body through your knees and your legs and your belly, through your fingertips, your elbows, your shoulders. Inhale, I am, and exhale, compassion. With your next round of breath, match the phrase, I am compassion, with your inhale and exhale. And finally, I am on the inhale, here on the exhale. One more round of breath to assure yourself that you are here. And if you've let your eyes come closed, you can open them now. Give your body a little shake. And maybe notice if you feel any different after spending just a few minutes observing your breath and repeating phrases that keep you in the moment. See if you feel any different. If you feel better, that's a skill you can use anytime throughout the day. And if it caused you stress and anxiety, that's also worth noting. Maybe take a few minutes to take some notes about what sort of thoughts were moving through your mind as you were offered the opportunity to do that exercise. Thank you for practicing with me on that. Again, along with meditation and relaxation and using technology to do those things, self-care can also really focus around boundaries. And I know we've talked about in this group before, but it's really setting boundaries with things like saying no. It might be knowing when you need to go out and socialize or when you need to stay home and take care of things at a slower pace alone. It might mean releasing guilt or something that you're punishing yourself for. So forgiveness. It might mean, as the girl said in the video or the woman said in the video, reaching out to a friend and asking for help. And practicing the skill of verbalizing what you need from the people in your life who care about you. Here's when the term self-care can become toxic. And these are phrases to look out for in social media or in the community, or when there's a monetary component to self-care. So the phrase self-care can come up in the form of toxic positivity. So in phrases like, just stay positive or only positive vibes. Self-care might actually mean bringing up heavy emotions, like letting yourself grieve something or feeling the emotion of sadness. Self-care might be letting your anger take you to a protest or standing up for a friend. So self-care and positivity aren't necessarily the same thing. Sometimes self-care can mean getting more connected to emotions that are heavier. Self-care can be toxic when there's pressure to engage in expensive treatments. So when you see things like self-care at the spa, sure, if you can afford that, I guess that's great. But self-care doesn't have to cost $200. Self-care may be connecting to nature, or it may be something that's completely free. Look out for overuse of substances as a way to engage in self-care. So things around the wine culture, or I put that phrase, mommy needs wine. Like when we find that a substance is needed to engage in self-care, that's always a good thing to keep an eye on. And again, there's balance in everything, right? So we're a social culture. And if you've disconnected from your friend group for a few months and going out for a glass of wine with friends is going to be really rejuvenating for you, absolutely. But when it becomes sort of like a catch-all or a crutch or bridges into the line of addiction, that's when we want to be aware. And then self-care in the form of toxic masculinity. So phrases like just power through or man up about it. You know, my hope is that those are disappearing from our culture a little, but those also are phrases you want to look out for things that maybe aren't the healthiest self-care practice. As I mentioned before, Indigenous cultures have long known the value of balance and holistic wellness. So the way I'll break down some different ideas for engaging in self-care is through this mind, body, spirit, emotion conceptualization, or physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual wellness, and paying attention to, again, this is why self-care is such a personal experience. You know, I might be feeling out of balance and one of you may be feeling out of balance, but mine may be that my physical health is really what I've been neglecting. And yours may be that your emotional health is what you've been neglecting. So we're going to have very different exercises we need to do to bring ourselves back into balance. But I really like this visual for helping us know which bucket sort of needs to be filled any given moment. So we'll start with self-care to address mental wellness. Mental health self-care refers to the practice of taking deliberate actions to nurture and prioritize how our mind works best. And so, as mentioned in the video, that might be some regular writing exercises. I don't really like the term journaling because sometimes we associate that with forced journaling in elementary school or in a class or something. So I'm a big fan of just free writing or free scribbling or free note-taking. A practice of meditation. So something similar to what I walked you through a few moments ago, or downloading an app, or just going along with a 5-minute free YouTube exercise. The practice of self-compassion, which is sort of forgiving ourselves or alleviating some of the pressure we put on ourselves so that we can also do that for the people that we're interacting with. And just reading anything new, watching a movie, or doing puzzles. So just helping our minds make fresh and new neural connections is always a great way to practice self-care, so we don't get stuck in those same neurons firing to each other that may have us stuck in a bit of a negative rut. As for emotional wellness, this includes things like identifying emotions and engaging the healthiest coping skills we can to figure out how to move through those emotions. So that might be having to reset a boundary that we kind of let slip. Maybe there's someone who invites themselves over to our house all the time, and during the holidays and when we have a break from school, it's really great. We like the company, we like having them over, but maybe that person is continuing to show up uninvited now that we're into the spring semester and life is busier, and it might mean having to reestablish the boundary of like, hey, I really appreciated you popping by unexpectedly when I was out of school, but now that I'm in school, I'm going to need you to give me a heads up when you want to hang out, because I need to protect my space at home for caring for myself and getting things done. Laughter, oh my gosh, there's so many great studies about laughter and humor and how they help our emotional wellness. Reaching out, staying connected, moving through our emotions, and forgiving ourselves and others. This is not a great graphic. The words are really small, but I think many of us are familiar with the wheel of emotions. You know, the very general emotions are there in the center, but as you move out of the circle, we realize there's so many different nuanced words and describers we have for how to experience the emotion of sad, for example. So I may use the word sad, but if I can really dig and get more and more specific by moving out of the circle, I can realize, oh man, I'm feeling sad because I'm grieving the 1-year anniversary of the passing of my cat. Or is it that I'm feeling sad because I'm really embarrassed about the quality of an assignment I handed in at school? Grieving my cat and figuring out how to move through an assignment I'm not really proud of, those both fall under the umbrella of sadness, but have very different actions that we would associate. So a grief reaction, I'm the better coping strategy for that might be taking a day off, calling out sick from work, spending some time at home, going to the Humane Society and donating a bag of cat food, something like that, versus maybe the activity that would go with embarrassed as it's related to an assignment. That activity might be gearing up to have a hard conversation with a professor, drafting an email and having a friend look over the email. You see what I mean? So the more specific we could get with which emotion we're actually feeling, if we're stuck in a very broad term, the better we'll be able to nurture the need that we're having in that moment. And of course, I include this slide in many of my presentations, but just having awareness of when you can kind of work through that on your own and with the tools you already have in your personal life versus when you might need to ask for some outside or professional mental health help. And that's when symptoms are really, they've moved in, they've been hanging out for the last 2 weeks. You're starting to notice that even the things you try to improve your sleep are not working. It's starting to have an impact on weight loss or weight gain, really struggling to get out of the bed consistently in the morning, even and especially if we've had a sufficient amount of hours of sleep. Our concentration is consistently, again, for 2 weeks or more, unable to engage, really hard to find interest in the things that we should be enjoying. And at the most severe, having thoughts that we don't want to be here anymore. No human should be expected to move through that severity of symptoms on their own. And I would certainly encourage anyone to reach out if it gets to that point. And our resources for the counseling center at the end of this presentation. So our third bucket of holistic wellness can take the form of spiritual wellness. So we did mental, emotional, spiritual wellness. And of course, spiritual wellness does not have to involve religion. For many, it can. It can be reconnecting with perhaps your church community, or maybe trying a different church that you weren't exposed to as when you were young. But general spiritual wellness can involve anything that helps you develop that deeper sense of meaning, understanding, and connection to the greater world, to nature, to humanity. So what that might be calling for in your life is connection with culture and community. There are excellent studies about people who have survived trauma, and then when they've done enough healing themselves, being able to in some way reconnect with the community that may still be experiencing that similar trauma. So for example, if someone has been in the service, they experience some trauma from serving our country or a negative experience overseas, and then come back, engage in their own healing, and then being able to volunteer for a veterans association or group or something like that. When people take surveys after that, it feels really good because we can't go back in time and we can't undo what happened to us, but sometimes we can be that person we would have needed to somebody else in that same community. And so connecting with community, connecting with culture, we all, kind of oscillate from, I think, how connected we are from our family of origins culture or from the culture of our community. And then sometimes because life gets busy or we don't feel accepted in a certain place, some of those things can get connected. And so that may be something like attending a cultural activity that we've moved away from and really speaks to our heart. And that takes a practice of engaging in self-reflection. So some ideas like that involve many of our senses can be, to kind of skip ahead in that list, trying a new food. There may have been a food in childhood that an auntie used to make us, and we haven't had it in the last 15 years. And maybe emailing a relative or asking someone for the recipe and just cooking a food that takes us back to a time where we felt really nurtured and loved and cared for. Introducing a new smell into your space. So maybe it's just picking, pine needles from outside and getting that that scent into your space if that feels special to you, or, cutting an apple in half and putting it in a pot with a stick of cinnamon to bring back a smell of holiday cooking, or anything that enlists your senses. Turn the screens off for a little bit, get outside for a few moments, find a free music or dance event, or create a music and dance event in your own kitchen. These are all great for connecting to our spirit. Try to find ways that are free, that feel good. And I'm all for lazy self-care. I think as a society, we all have the January, like, I'm going to sign up for the gym and go 5 days a week. And sometimes when we aim much higher than what is already part of our routine, we end up kind of not doing anything altogether. So as humans, we have a greater chance of success if we say, I'm going to do something different for 5 minutes this week. Just one day this week, I'm going to find 5 minutes and do something a little different. The chances of us sticking on that success is much greater than if we aim too high and then get disappointed in ourselves for not being able to fulfill that. So yeah, I would encourage you all to just maybe even start, if you want to go smaller, say, I'm going to take 30 seconds tonight before I fall asleep and think of one happy memory or something. Not even happy, think of one memory. That's it. So find the laziest thing you can do to get started. I shouldn't use that word lazy, but the least, you don't have to be perfect for anyone in engaging in this practice. Okay, so as I mentioned before, I had a little slide that gets a mildly political. I am familiar with this woman, Tricia Hersey. She's the author of a book called Rest is Resistance. I'll play a little bit of her speaking. They recently replayed an interview with her on the radio just this past weekend, actually, and it was really, I've been thinking about it, knowing that I was going to share with you all. And so she has cultivated 4 tenets. Well, maybe actually, let's listen to her speak first, and then we can add on and I'll share the rest of her interview, and you can decide if that's something you'd like to keep listening to, maybe on your own. So let me transition here real quick, just so you don't have to listen to my voice for a few moments. So here, I'm gonna go here, share this.
Your supporter.
What was going on in your life at that time when you were studying, when you just decided enough, I'm going to start prioritizing rest in a way that I've never prioritized rest before?
This was in 2013 when I started divinity school. In September 2013 is when I had my orientation, and we were to start the program, a 3-year program. And I remember very quickly, it took about 2 weeks before I was sitting on the steps of the financial aid building at the university, crying to my husband on the phone, like, what have I gotten myself into? And he's like, what are you? I'm like, the pace of this, if you can see the syllabus, they want us to read 1,000 words in a week. That's one class. I'm taking 6 classes. Like, I can't keep up already. I'm overwhelmed. Like, how am I going to do this? But also at the time, specific time, Black Lives Matter movement was heating up. Just like all this trauma was happening. I was just coming to school and nobody was mentioning anything about it. The teachers were just moving on. And I was just like so traumatized by this. And then I also had 2 people in my family die suddenly. I was going through deep financial issues. I didn't have a car, so sometimes I would be walking back and forth to the bus because bus stop trying to get to school. And then I had a 6-year-old son at the time that I was raising, working 2 jobs, trying to pay for my tuition, also doing an internship for school. So I really was like spiritually dying and physically seeing the effects of that on my body. I was having migraine headaches, and my weight was fluctuating. I wasn't eating properly. It was just like a full-on battle. And so at one point, I just said to myself, I don't care. Like, I went to all of my teachers and told them, I'm going to come to class and get the attendance credit, but you may not get any work from me. And so I just started resting everywhere. I had all these special places to sleep all over campus, and I would also sleep when I got home. Instead of studying, I would lay down on the couch and put the book on my chest and just go to sleep. I wasn't staying up no more to 3 a.m. like my classmates. I said, I don't care. I said, let the chips fall where they may. I have to save myself. And rest became the vehicle to see what my body would do and what could happen when I went into a dream space, when I went into a portal of resting, when I decided to just lay down.
What happened, Trisha says, is that she began to heal. Her grades improved, she was happier, she was healthier, and she wanted to share that with people. Before seminary, Trisha was a longtime artist, and like her dad, she was a community organizer. So her first thought was a performance art piece, a collective napping experience where strangers could come together and rest in public. And to Trisha's surprise, people actually showed up.
People came in droves, and they laid down and they woke up crying. They were so moved. They were so exhausted. It was just became this spiritual, community-driven activation for the community.
So Trisha was organizing these collective napping experiences. Then she started sharing her rest philosophy on Instagram. And because she was in seminary, she was also doing a lot of studying.
I was studying the archives, looking at plantation labor, being here in Georgia in the South. I was able to touch and get my hands on so many powerful, really haunting documents around the sin of slavery here. And so I was writing papers and like experimenting with this idea of somatics and rest, the body and the mind, and resting and reparations and racial healing.
All that studying and writing and thinking about rest as reparations led Trisha to develop the 4 tenets of the NAP ministry.
So I went ahead and broke that down. I have the link in this PowerPoint if you'd like to keep listening. But I wanted to talk a little bit about those 4 tenets. And oh no, here we go. So her 4 tenets of rest is an act of resistance. Purposefully stepping out of that grind culture can disrupt toxic capitalist tendencies and really provide for healing in lots of ways that many cultures in this country have not been able to. Many of our ancestors didn't have the choice to stop or to not just go all the time. It meant life or death. It meant that they needed to do everything they could to stay here and keep their family here. And many of us may still, or many of you may still feel that you're in that cycle a little bit. But anytime we can sort of collaborate with others and step out of that grind culture, there really is an opportunity to challenge the systems that treat humans kind of as machines or robots. This concept of using rest to facilitate the creativity of being human, the ability we have when our brain is relaxed, or at least not in stress mode, to dream, to come up with new ideas, to innovate, to create. It also empowers the human's capability to, become more autonomous. Some of us, depending on what our upbringing was like, may be so disconnected from our body that we don't even really know what our needs are. We've not felt the choice before to really sit down for a moment and identify, like, man, am I hungry? Man, do I need a nap? Oh boy, these shoes are really, I'm wearing a hole in the sole, just the ability to sort of remember that we can find ways to meet our needs. And again, if many of those feel out of reach, at least the ability to just sit down and know I have the ability to find peace and rest on this campus under a tree for 5 minutes today. That can kind of be the start of the process. And of course, allowing for healing. And I think that's all the way from an individual level to a global level. Okay, so there was my soapbox on taking self-care to the next level. I have one other story to share. which is that I believe that when we are leaders and people in positions of power, we have even more of a responsibility to our fellow humans to engage in rest as well. And so I think of this in a previous workspace that I was in. There was a team of 10 of us. 5 of us would take a lunch hour from 12 to 1, and the other 5 would take a rest hour from 1 to 2. Sometimes there were the group of people that would just eat lunch at their desk, but not really leave their desk and show that they were still available. And what was challenging about that is that there was sort of then this dynamic created that the people who took the designated lunch hour were somehow not working as hard, or that the sort of person sitting and eating lunch at their desk and remaining available was kind of inadvertently, I think, making it look like others weren't willing to work as hard. And so what I think leadership allows for is encouraging everyone to take those breaks that are designated at work, so that everyone feels able to do that. And there's not sort of this guilt that, well, if I take my lunch and this person doesn't, then maybe people won't think I'm working as hard as this other person. And so I think we really do owe it to other humans to be observant of that, and times when, if you're in a position of power or leadership, that it's also important to show that you value rest and healing. Okay, let's see, what else do we have? And finally, the 4th tenet of physical wellness, I think, obviously a healthy physical body can recover from stress better than an unhealthy body. So yeah, I don't know if you've noticed this in yourself. Sometimes if you're getting over a cold, maybe a small stressor comes up and it just feels harder to kind of recover from that. Versus if you're well and a small inconvenience comes up in the day, your body can kind of bounce back. And so again, in doing the least tackling these self-care changes in the least disruptive way, like the way that feels easiest to integrate, may just start as like packing an extra bag of peanuts in your purse. That might be it for the whole year of 2024. Is just, I'm going to have a healthy snack that has protein in it once a day. And that's my self-care for 2024. Taking medicines prescribed and eliminating things you don't need. Things around campus, they're offering yoga classes at the rec center, and depending on how many credits you're signed up for, definitely utilize the recreation center. Planning times on either side of a class, if you're coming to campus, to take a quick 15-minute group walk, just maybe around the building, asking a teacher if they'll allow for a 10-minute break, just for everyone to stand and stretch outside. I'm also going to mention our Acu Wellness program at the Counseling Center has really grown this semester. We have previously had 2 providers here who do the 5-point ear acupuncture on campus, and we've expanded our team and are trying to do more group events or open it up. So if coming to the Counseling Center for a specific appointment time is not conducive to people, to have as many events as we can where people can utilize the ancient practice of acupuncture to help decrease the physical responses to stress as well. So if you want to learn any more about that, you can always ask at the Counseling Center or send me an email. And also in that list, I could do a whole talk on the importance of sleep and how probably much of our population is sleep deprived. March 15th is World Sleep Day, and across campus, in many of the wellness spaces around campus, the week of March 10th through the 14th, there'll be activities and tablings. And again, I think we're going to make sure to have some acupuncture events going on too. So you might see the phrase time to ungrind. So I used that language earlier, that we're sort of trying to move away from this grind culture, that the only way we have worth and are productive is if we're going every waking minute of the day, and how important it is to ungrind sometimes. So yeah, those are just some things to look out for. In summary, the practice of self-care is broad. I hope I helped give you some words and ideas to latch onto that work for you. Sometimes self-care might be a more active practice. So it might be, gosh, I've withdrawn and I really need to connect to my community and my social group. And other times this might mean setting a boundary and saying, I need to retire to my quiet space and take a break for a while. Both are appropriate depending on your needs. Connecting to Indigenous cultures that have used this paradigm of physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual wellness to zero in on what particular area might be pulling you out of balance. And finally, using resources in real life and online to integrate into your life so that you can live whole and well. Again, here's the information for our counseling center on campus. We're in the Center for Health and Human Inquiry on the first floor. If you've ever been to the health clinic, we're the door, just if you're facing the front, just to the right of it. This phone number, 719-549-2838, is staffed Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. But for any student in an emergency or crisis situation, it is 24 hours. You can call and have someone to talk to. I think that is it for me today. I would love to open it up to any questions or observations. Yeah, anything anyone wants to talk about or ask.
I just have a quick comment. My favorite slide was probably the toxic self-care one, just because you see that a lot getting thrown around. And it kind of depends on the context mostly, because I can see how those can be good in some contexts, but bad in some of the other contexts. So I thought that was cool how you pointed that out.
Fantastic. I appreciate that observation.
Yeah. And if nobody else has observations or questions, I will share my screen and we'll do the winners of the $25 Amazon gift card. So usually this is more fun because usually we have more people. So our first winner is Maya. Awesome. And our second winner is Garrett. So you guys can come to my office and pick up those $25 gift cards for Amazon anytime this week or next week.
Hey, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah. Pretty easy to guess the winners, but awesome. Thanks so much, Elizabeth.
Yeah, of course. And I'm always happy to share the PowerPoint if anyone requests.
Okay, that would be great.
All right. Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.